I'm Michelle from Talmuchty Paper Blooms. Today we're going to be learning how to make a paper chrysanthemum. They're a very straightforward flower to make, and they're actually one of my top 3 beginner flowers. I did a video explaining what those were, which I'll link up on the screen right now if you haven't already seen. And those are my top 3 flowers to get started with if you're new to crepe paper flowers. So this is number 2, a paper chrysanthemum. As you can see, they're a little bit wild and unruly, so they're quite easy to make because your petal placement, it doesn't really matter too much. And if you go wrong, it just adds to the width of the flower and the unruliness. The papers that I'm using are from the Leah Griffith range at Werrila, so it's the heavyweight German crepe paper. I'll pop a link in the description box below for where I get mine from. I know a few people have been struggling to get hold of crepe paper in different parts of the world, so I've added some extra links into the description box below, which might help you find something a bit closer to home for you. One other thing to consider when you're picking the colours for your chrysanthemums is just consider what you're going to do with the flowers when they're finished. So I've gone with 3 complementary colours. They actually complement my crepe paper peony, which I made in a previous tutorial. I'll put the link to that up above right now. But you can see, so this is the crepe paper peony and here are my chrysanthemums. So they're all in this coral and peachy tone. So eventually I'll put all of these together into a bouquet and they're going to work really nicely together. So you don't have to do these same colours as me, but choose something that will complement if you do plan to put them all together in the future. If not, you can just do random colours and keep them separate. Totally up to you. So I'm going to do this as a 2-part tutorial, and that's more so to give your flower a chance to dry between each layer of petals. We're going to be using over 100 petals today, which sounds scary, so please don't panic. They're all very simple petals. But that's a lot of glue on the head of your wire, so just to give it a little bit more sturdiness and to give it a chance to properly dry in between each one, I'm going to separate this into 2 so that you can give it overnight or a few hours at least to dry. So this is part 1, head back very soon for part 2. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you get a notification when part 2 goes live.
First thing you want to do is cut down your wire to the right length. That's whatever length works best for you depending on the vase you plan to use. And I'm using 16 gauge paper covered wire here. So there's 2 methods of making the centre of your flower depending what you can get your hands on. Option 1 is using a polystyrene or foam ball like this. I already have a lot of these at home and I know a lot of people use them for kids' crafts as well, so if you have some then they're the quickest way to get started with your flower. This is about 1 inch diameter, but any size will do really. And what you can do is just poke a hole in the ball with the wire and then drop that same wire into your glue and then push it back into the hole and just secure it with a little bit of glue around the edge as well. And then you just want to leave that to dry, ideally for an hour or 2, if not overnight. And then the other option, if you don't already have a foam ball that you can use, you can just make your own from scraps of paper. So to do this, you basically want to form a ball from the paper. So you want to stretch your crepe paper all the way out, and then roll it and fold it in on itself and just generally work it into a ball shape. This is also a really good way of using up any scraps of crepe paper that you might have. Just make sure that you're gluing each piece individually so that it's all stuck together properly. And also make sure that you go with a lighter colour or the same colour as your finished centre will be. So you'll see here I'm using some yellow crepe and I'm planning for my centre to be a peachy colour. And then it's a good idea to take 1 square of stretched out crepe paper just to cover the outside of the ball as well, just to give yourself a smooth edge to be working with. And if you notice, I'm using quite a lot of glue here as well, just to make sure that everything is very secure and stuck down. Now that is going to take a while to dry, but it will be best in the long run. So once you've got your finished ball, you need to find a way to poke a hole for the wire. Now it won't be as straightforward to just push the wire into it like we did with the foam ball. So I'm using my detail scissors here and just pushing that in and wiggling it around a little bit. If you have some other kind of sharp point, that might be better, but it depends what you've got at home. And once you've got the hole, you just want to take your wire, dip it into some tacky glue, and then push that into the hole as far as you can. And you'll need to push down quite a bit of pressure here to make sure it goes all the way in. Make sure you've got a lot of glue on that as well so that it will dry quite solid. And again, you want to make sure that has plenty of time to dry. So we'll be using 2 different colours of crepe paper. So I have this lighter peachy colour for the centre of my flower, and then I'm going to have pink petals. So first of all, you want to cover the ball, whichever method you used. You want to cover that with the centre colour, whether yours is lighter like mine or a different colour. Make sure you glue that down thoroughly. Next we're going to cut the inner petals, and I'm using the lighter of my two colours for this. I've created a template which you can use to cut your petals, and you can download that from the link below this video, or you could even try these freehand. But just double check the length of your petals, because if your centre is bigger than mine, you might find that they're the wrong size. So now that I've checked the height of my petals, I've stretched out my crepe paper, and I'm basically cutting strips that are about 1 centimetre wide. And then once you have your strips, you're just going to round the corners at one end, and you're looking for a rounded point ideally. And then you just need to keep going with that same colour paper until you have 12 petals. My petals are about 4 centimetres long, but as I say, just check the length of yours. And then to curl the ends of your petals, you can use either a cocktail stick or a toothpick, or even just a piece of offcut wire from your main stem. So you'll do this in the same way as you would curl ribbon with scissors. So you want to hold it tight with one hand and then pull away with the other. And I've got the paper between the wire and my thumb, and I'm pulling that really tight to get a nice curl on there. Next, you want to add a line of tacky glue to the inside of each petal, and you want that so that it will be curling towards the centre of the flower. And then to attach it, you want to make sure that the bottom of the petal lines up with the bottom of the ball, and then just roughly push that into place. Then the top of the petal should overlap the top of the ball by about 1/2 centimetre. And then you just want to work your way around, adding more petals until the whole centre is covered. And ideally they should overlap slightly as well so that there's no gaps. Next, you want to take your second colour and do exactly the same thing. This time you want 40 petals, and mine are about 5 centimetres long. You might notice that I'm also trimming off the very edge of my crepe paper, and that's because that bit doesn't stretch out fully. And again, you want to take all of your petals and curl them inwards towards the centre of the flower. And this is why I say that this is one of the most straightforward flowers, because although there's a lot of petals, they're all the same. It's very straightforward to make. It just is very time consuming. And then we'll attach those exactly the same as we did before. You want to have a slightly more overlap at the top of the petal this time. So that should be natural anyway because you've got longer petals, but if not, just adjust it accordingly so that you start to create some height in the flower. Make sure that when you're working your way around the outside of the flower, you've got no gaps and that you've got overlaps. You don't want this to be symmetrical either. Try to just place the petals randomly rather than evenly spacing them. And then I'm just going to keep repeating the process until I've attached around about 25 petals. And then for the last 15 petals, I want to have a bit of a tighter curl on the end of the petal. So I'm wrapping that really tightly around the edge of my wire, just to get it so it curls right under and also out to the side a little bit as well, so it's a bit more unruly. So the aim is that the petals will curl inwards towards the centre, and then as you progress out towards the outside of the flower, they become more unruly and start to curl in different directions.
So that's it for part one. If you have any questions about what we've done so far, please drop them in the comments box below and I'll do my best to answer them. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you get a notification when part two goes live. How much for being here to celebrate the special moments with me.